nice. 4 questions, including 8.4, that last section that we did some extra work on Friday, and the review. If you have any questions from either or, after I do the note check, I will allow you to come up and show those to me. Not yet, not yet. And I'm logging into WebAssign so I can help support you in that or to that end. So once again, you guys are getting ready, you are getting organized, you are getting things open and getting things started. Things meaning maybe your note check, you're getting your table of contents up to date. Things meaning maybe your 8.4 homework open and seeing if you have any questions. Things like possibly just opening your test review and starting. Any questions about how you can be productive until the timer goes off and I grade whatever notes are ready? No? Cool. Then I have the review up on the screen. You guys, let's go ahead and get started. What can you be doing? What can you be getting ready? What can you be getting started? Questions? Cool. Get them on the board. Notes ready to check? Awesome. Get all your page numbers up to date in 8.1 to 8.4. The review? Get it started or keep it going, depending on where you're at. Andy? It's hard without me doing a whole nother chapter on matrices. I'm introducing a lot for you guys. So like with vectors, I introduced the idea of a dot product, but we didn't do a whole section on applying because of time. But in like a physics class, you would have gone much deeper seeing how to use the dot product. In matrices, we didn't do a whole other section on applications with the determinant. But in like a linear algebra class in college, you guys would then go on to use it in lots of ways. So I was just kind of showing you the basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and I fit determinant in there because it's so basic for what's to come if you ever see matrices again. Is that cool? Like, it's hard for me to answer that question. It's like the dot product in that it's a fundamental characteristic of a matrix that can be used in lots of different ways if you were to ever go on. Is that cool? Otherwise, I would Google it and be like, what's the point of a determinant? And that might be an interesting thing to kind of try to research. Ryan. I'm sorry, bud, I can't hear you. What?
You look at the physical book are the same, right?
Yeah, the exact same for the review. Well, actually, the exact same for everything. I was thinking WebAssign where it changes the problems, but the ebook is the exact same. Yeah, I was just trying to make it easy. All right, remember, if you have any questions, now's the time to write them on the board for either 8.4 and or the review, but you'll get to keep on putting those questions up when I come around to grade your notes if you have them ready. Just come on up and write it on the board. Yeah, Andy?
So there's no bonus for this test?
There'll be a bonus on the test.
Oh, okay.
There will be a bonus on the test. Sasha. I'm so sorry. Hold on, Sasha. Go ahead.
Is there going to be any word problems in the test?
There could be. But if so, it would be a word problem that could be made into a system that would then be solved by like an RREF, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, if it was a word problem, it'd probably be a word problem that could be made into a system and then solved with RREF. All right, I have 8.4 ready. I have the ebook ready. Wait, what's going on? Me?
No.
Oh.
Because Marquez makes a big deal out of us coming here instead of going on the track.
Probably because of boys soccer. You can blame them.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Let me know if there's not any.
Okay, she needs a lot. She's my
You look cool right now.
Oh, I have a picture of it.
All right. Alright, any notes that are ready to grade, just pass them straight on up and I'll process them really fast. Any notes ready to grade, I'll process them really fast. You won't have to worry about it for tomorrow. Probably not in class.
I know.
We have time though, Ryan. Any more notes ready right now for me to grade? Just notes for right now. Any more notes that are ready for me to grade? I'll process them real fast. Yeah. I can do other ones tomorrow. Last call on notes for me to process. You guys have time to work. You have time to collaborate. You have time to get more questions on the board. People listening to this video, it's not going to really be helpful for me to keep on recording, so they're just working right now once again on the test review. I have spare books in my room, just look around the big yellow ones at the front. And I am just processing their note check for them real fast, so they don't have to worry about it tomorrow. If we have time, maybe spiral, but otherwise I can always collect those tomorrow. For you guys, I just try to do inside or outside of class. And then in just a little bit, we're going to be going over in the 8.4 Jamboard, whatever questions they have on 8.4 and or the review. I'll be back with you guys in a little bit. Okay, so, the questions that were posed. The questions that were posed were 12, 9, and 13. I'm going to do them in the order of 9, 12, and 13. For number 9, technically, those of you guys who asked this question, you should have this information. They were forcing our hand, weren't they? However, did you guys notice that no matter what row, no matter what column, shouldn't you get the exact same answer for the determinant? Okay, so it is a characteristic of the whole matrix. Not just whatever row or column you use, but a characteristic of the whole. So to be honest, technically, you really only had to do one and then fill in the box of the other, and unless we're looking really closely at the work you're showing, we might not catch it, because it should be the same answer no matter what. However, I do want to at least somewhat act like, or in line with what they asked you. Does anybody have what the first one was supposed to be? Is it row 4?
Yeah, I think it was row 4 and then the other one was column 2. Oh yeah, I kept thinking 24.
And it also is a way of double checking, because no matter how you do it, it should come out to be the same answer. It should never be different answers. It's once again a characteristic of the whole shebang. Okay? So row 4 would have had us working our way along this guy, which remember would have had us using -3, 0, which isn't going to really even matter, right? -1 and 4. If we're thinking about cofactors, vocabulary, we're going to have a minus, and then a plus, and then a minus. Not sure why everything just got really exciting in here, but let's calm it on down. Then we need minors. Now here's the dilemma. When we go for our minors, they're going to be kind of messy, right? Because what are you going to have? Ugh. You're going to have some 3x3s, right? So sadly, I don't think I left tons of room for 3x3s. Let's see if I might be able to do it. I should have paid a little more attention to what was going on. Okay. So for our 3x3s, we're going to have 0, 0, -5. Now, the nice thing is, by you choosing, or by them forcing you to choose a row that did not have a lot of zeros, you do get this experience of, like, I wonder if it's always that great of a thing to choose the row or column with all the zeros. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but they're at least giving you some exposure to, what if I didn't choose the column with all the zeros? What if I chose another one? Would the zeros still help? I think, yeah, because if I were you, I would go choosing that guy for the next round of determinants. Because to do a 3x3, I'd have to choose any row, any column, and go again. If I was to make this minor, which was also asked of you in other places of homework just to be able to make minors, I mean, I could write it down, but is it really going to matter what this minor is, since the term is 0? And the answer is, nah, 0 times anything is just 0, so forget that guy altogether. This next round of my breaking down in minors, ignoring the row, ignoring the column, I would have and then for the last round, my entry is a 4. I had to make some more room, sorry guys. which would lead me to 6, 0, 0, 5, 0, 1, 1, negative 2. Now, if I was to write one of those numbers incorrectly, I really hope you guys would let me know, because otherwise that could get pretty messy pretty fast. But what's really nice about each of these 3x3s is they have lots of zeros. So I can choose a row or a column with lots of zeros, and it'll simplify my next step. Because my next step is to go ahead and take whatever this guy is, which is a positive 3, and say, hey, you need to be multiplied by, well, I'm going to need to move along this row of 0, doesn't really matter what would come next. And then another 0, doesn't really matter what would come next, because 0 times anything is 0. Then I have a negative 5. As far as my cofactors, I would have a positive, but once again, won't really matter. A negative won't really matter. A positive. What I do need is this guy, which would be a 0, 1, negative 2, 3. Then I would, that one doesn't matter anymore because it's 0 times anything is 0. I have a plus 1 times, I'm using this column, which this column will be, let's see, positive, negative. So I'm going to have a negative, oh, it's going to be zeros anyway. So I'm going to have my 0, 0, negative 2. 0 times anything won't matter. 0 times anything won't matter. But my negative 2 needs his minor, which is going to be 6, negative 5, 5, 2. And that finishes that guy off. And it could have been worse if all of these were numbers. Whoa. But they're not, so that's good. And I end with my last one, and my last one is a plus 4 times. I'm going to have a 6 and a 0 and a 0. That's a positive, negative, positive. These guys really aren't going to matter. This guy, though, will. I'm going to have 0, 1, negative 2, 3. So at the end of the day, what does all this do? 3 times negative 5 will be negative 15 times main is 0 minus opposite. It'll be a positive 2. Plus 1, well, 1 times a positive 2 if I distribute. 1 times a positive 2 is a positive 2. Times main, which is 12, minus a negative 25 would be 37. Double check that. 12 minus a negative 25. That was 3 minus a negative 2. My last one is going to be 4 times 6, so 24 times main, 3 minus negative 2 plus 2, 48. Which would equal, I'm just going to go this way. That'd be 18, 18, and 74, 80, 92. Let's double check. You can always double check by throwing this into your calculator and using the determinant feature.
Yeah. I think I know what you did wrong.
Oh, what did I do wrong?
There's a, if you go back to your work, there's I think the negative one, the 3x3, on column 2, row 2, it's supposed to be negative 2, I think. Right there. Yeah, it's supposed to be negative.
Something else look good? So that would change. That'd be a negative 2, which would be a negative 12 plus 25. And negative 12 plus 25 would be 13. Should be a 26. Should be a negative 4, 44. Good catch, Jackson. Thank you. There you go. Got him. Yeah.
I have two questions actually. So for these, you know how like you can make such a small mistake and like your full answer's gonna be off. So I did that a lot, like on every single problem. Is there like a way to, you know, how the test like
To double check.
yeah, like on your calculator or something?
If it's the calculator portion, remember there's two parts of the
so
test.
the
I'm not going to have a lot of these, number one. So like in homework, you were doing tons and tons and tons of calculations. It's more ideas on the test where a couple of them are going to require calculations. So hopefully you won't be as brain dead and or prone to mistakes if it's only a couple, or you could double check. It is going to be helpful for sure to be able to do a determinant and inverse a multiplication on your calculator for that portion of the test, but I can't have the calculator be on the whole thing for obvious reasons. But it is going to be minimal as far as, if it's something big, it's going to be something fast and easy that you should have time to double check.
how do you do it on the
Oh, sweet. That's actually number 13. So for number 13, and then we can go back to number 12. Number 13 is how do you do a determinant? And I think this was once the bell rang. I think I showed it real fast in the video, but most of you guys were already gone. Remember how to make a matrix, right? I already went ahead and put this in when you guys were talking and working and finishing up collaborating. So I threw this matrix in, double checking real fast, because even like inputting numbers, like you can make a mistake here too. So we just double, triple check. Cool. Once we have this, do you remember how you did RREF back in the day? Second matrix math. In that same menu, look at number 1. So you can do DET, and then we can do our matrix. Put in whatever one you have, like whichever one you have the numbers in. There he is. So for anybody who was asking for number 13, once again, throw in that matrix, edit it, input what you need, and then that exact same menu where you find RREF, the very first option, that's how important determinants are to matrices, is DET. Use that feature, put in the matrix that you want, and then you have it. So the only other homework question that I had come in was number 12, which, to be honest, this one is probably a little bit more like the test. Ooh, any ears perk up? If there was one on the test that was really big, it probably would look something like this. Because of how many zeros. Like you can show me that you know how to do it without tons of math being involved. Does that make sense? So, yeah, you're solving it all the way down for one number, right? So we're going to use that 3. What's the cofactor going to establish it as? A positive or a negative? Because it's that very top one. Then, I mean, we could, but we don't even have to write any of those, right? So a positive, and then what's his minor going to be? Now, I know it looks disgusting until we go to do the next step. And as we go to do the next step, please, oh please, wouldn't you guys use the one with all the zeros? Right? And then we're going to have a positive again. Whereas these ones aren't going to really matter. Because all I have to worry about is this first one, because everything else is zeros. So I'm going to have my little like positive 3 from before. I'm going to have my little like positive 1 from right now. And then he's going to have his minor. What you going to use for that last one? Right? And then double checking, I have a positive. So then for that last guy, I'm going to have my positive 3. I'm going to have my positive 1. I'm going to have my, I don't need to worry about the zeros because they cancel out. Ooh, I did not cross off the right row and column though. Crossing off that one. And then I'm going to have my positive. Two with his minor. So Natalie, this would be like a great question on the test.
Yeah. These are easy.
So
It's
whoever,
like small mistakes.
yeah, and when there's a lot of calculation, it's really easy to make. So I might have like a 3x3 that you do, but not anything bigger by hand unless it has tons of zeros like this one.
Oh.
And I'm going to do real fast to finish this problem and then take Ryan's question. Main minus opposite, which will end up with 84. Go ahead, Ryan. What's up?
Just had a question.
Mhm.
For row 2, why is it there again?
For row 2, why isn't it what?
So you see it where you put like 3, then 1, 5, 4, 2. Oh. Never mind.
So ignore the row, ignore the column, and then rewrite, right?
Then how'd you get to 2? It's not a lot, yeah.
I was using the first column first, because every time you do a new determinant, you can choose a new column or row. I just need one. So when I got down to here, I was like, ew, numbers, zeros. And so I chose the one with all the zeros. So then I was expanding by row 3, this last one. And row 3 had a 0, don't need to write it, a 0, don't need to write it, a 2, and that's where I went to finish.
So you can choose any number?
Any row, any column. Not any number. I chose the third row, which had a 0 and a 0, which would have canceled out. I just didn't write it for sake of time. I wrote it in this one, right? I wrote all those zeros and I canceled them all out. But here, to save time, I was like a 0, forget it, a 0, forget it, a 2, awesome. I could have used 240, 264, but I would have had a lot more calculations, like I did with these ones. I chose the ones with all the zeros to go simpler, faster. But if you want to come in another time today, I could choose one of the other ones and we can see that it'll be the exact same thing.
Is this method the same exact thing as number 9?
Yeah.
Oh.
But why is this problem nicer? Because it was entirely zeros except, entirely zeros except, entirely zeros except. So it's the exact same procedure. Just here, I was showing all the zeros instead of just skipping them. And they had us choose a row without so many. But since we chose a row without so many, we were able to use those zeros elsewhere. Like we had a lot of zeros, it just looked really messy because I kept showing it and it didn't have quite as many. Does that make sense?
And then, so you can you know how Kelly highlighted it in gray? Can you use either row or either column to expand it by?
Yeah, I could have used this row instead of that row, or this row instead of that column. I could have used this row instead of that column. I mean, I could have used one of these nasty ones and it would have been tons of work. With zeros as well, but in different places. So I was just showing you a strategy as far as they said we could use anything that seems to make it easiest. And I was like, let's just use the one with all the zeros, all the zeros, all the zeros. And then it got to come down just to one simple calculation. But that was partially strategy. And so we have 9 and we have 12 and we have 13. I don't know how much of this happened on the recording, so a few quick hints about the test. Let me get back to here so that anyone watching the recording, I can tell you where to go. Bummer. I closed your Google Classroom. As I was saying to one of your classmates, which maybe you heard and maybe you didn't, when thinking about the test tomorrow, you are going to want to be able to do a few things on your calculator. Number 1, you're going to want to be able to multiply maybe 2 matrices together. It's only going to be really helpful to double check if it was something like on a calculator, on the calculator portion of the test, but you might want to be able to multiply 2 matrices together. Just realize if their insides don't match up, it's not going to work. I need the rows and the columns, the cross down to work. There will be some multiplication on the non-calculator portion of the test. So be ready, but sometimes it might be impossible. What else? You might want to also be able to, put matrices into your calculators, know the orders, but be careful. I might ask an order question on the non-calculator part of the test. to where you need to know which one is rows and which one is columns. You're going to want to be able to do the determinant on a calculator. You're going to want to be able to do RREF if possible on the calculator. And you're going to want to be able to do an inverse on the calculator as well. Otherwise, besides the calculator, other things that you guys might want to be able to do include, let me go back. We can go to your PDF real fast for chapter 8. How to do RREF to a matrix by hand with an augmented. There will probably be one of those on the non-calculator portion of the test, but there could also be this idea on the calculator portion. If it is on the calculator portion, you can go straight to using RREF. There might be something to do with the different vocab, like Gauss-Jordan says go all the way, whereas Gaussian says just go just REF. Just knowing what they're talking about when they give you different directions. I could give you some really nasty system of equations on the calculator portion, and remember, a simple RREF will take you all the way there. If it's on the calculator portion, you're allowed to use that tool as much as possible. But guys, what do we do if the size isn't quite right, and or if we get a 0 equals 0? What if the last row cancels out, or what if we have a non-square matrix? Is this one of those finitely many solutions or infinitely many solutions? Yeah, infinitely many solutions. And if we have, oh, it was the other chapter. And if we have infinitely many solutions, remember, it's not going to look like this nice little, hey, I have him. It's going to look more like, oh no! And then I just let z equals a, and I go back and plug in. Remember that z equals a. Other things to be able to do by hand, add, subtract, multiply. Sorry, there was some calculator speak in there for a bit. Add, subtract, multiply. I mean, those were the basics of section 8.2. This page is a good one to review, or a type of problem to review what to do by hand. But then we also had to do that whole cross down thing. Know when to multiply, know when it works, know when it doesn't. And then we got into inverses. Is there a little baby formula for 2x2s for inverses? Trying to get to it. ¿Dónde está? We have a way of doing an inverse with this whole like A, B, C, D, and then solve, solve, solve. Or we have a way with RREF, solve, 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 solve. But for a 2x2, we have a really snazzy little formula, but be careful. A lot of you were making this mistake at first. Is this the determinant, the whole thing? No, just this little baby piece for a 2x2. Otherwise, it's just a snazzy way to get to an inverse of a 2x2 quickly. I don't believe I have you doing any bigger inverses by hand, only 2x2s. Otherwise, you'll be using your calculator. Ooh, what happens, though, if the determinant is 0? It's 1 over 0. It's not going to work, and we're going to say that it's singular or non-invertible, right? Forever alone, those ones. And then past the inverse, we got into section 8.4, where it was all about determinants, which for 2x2s, sorry, there were lots of homework questions, I forgot. For 2x2s, we have our nice little formula. For 1x1s, it's like gorgeous. It's just the term. But for 3x3s, we have this process, or higher, that we just reviewed with terms and cofactors. Jackson, go ahead.
To find the inverse, can you just do like, you have like your determinant of A, and then you just like do just add the -1. Like you just press the.
If it's on your calculator, don't even do determinant, just do, I think it was the last thing I typed, just do matrix with the inverse. Yeah, not determinant, just good old-fashioned if you're doing your calculator, and then it'll give it to you if it has it. And remember, you can always make it into fractions if it's gross.
Oh yeah.
Ugh, that's a 0.
Okay, so that is.
That's a 0.
Thanks.
But that's some random problem that I just happened to have in there, so that doesn't really match up with anything on your review. What you guys gonna have ready for me to check tomorrow? Notes if you didn't already turn them in, right? Homework spirals if you didn't already turn them in. True? And then otherwise, have your calculator here or ready. And if you don't have a grapher, please, guys, listen. If you're used to borrowing my grapher, I think I know of like 4 or 5 different people that want to borrow my one calculator tomorrow. Ask your friends. Ask people in the next class. Ask people, no, don't ask people in the previous class. They will not know what you're talking about. But ask any AB kids, ask any BC kids, ask any pre-cal kids to borrow their calculator because you won't be able to borrow mine. All right, guys, you can pack up. You can relax a little bit. Chapel's coming soon. I'm going to save the